Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me here for the fifth video in the Summer of Purpose series. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about creative experimentation. And so thank you for joining me. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in and I will do my best to get to them at the end. And so yes, let's jump off. As you can see, I'm coming to you from my art studio here in Spenard in Anchorage, Alaska. And yeah, I'm excited to talk here about allowing ourselves this freedom to play and what a creative experimentation really means, and how I believe a lot of us are living it and doing it every day. We just don't know it, and we're not necessarily giving ourselves that credit for doing what we are doing. And so acknowledging those pieces of that we are these creative artistic individuals creating our lives, and how to become more mindful of that. A lot of people think creativity is a gift that's only bestowed on a select few. And I have to tell you, I don't know how many times I've heard, oh, I'm not an artist, or I'm not creative because I can't do this, or I can't do that, I can't draw. And that languaging and using the word I can't really puts us all in this box and closes any potential of creativity down. So see where we can watch where we're putting limitations and putting ourselves in these boxes before we even get a chance to start and begin and play. So allowing that space and watching this fear of failure, because walking into an art studio, or even starting it, I mean, I've had this before, starting a new recipe that I've never done before. Oh my gosh, what if I screw it up? And also, you know what? It's all information. Let's just dive in, do it. Let's play, experiment. It's experimenting and playing and being curious and see what happens, and releasing this whatever this thing, this outcome that we feel like we need to perform for. And so one of the things I wanted to start with was one of my favorite quotes that I read during my before we start in some of my classes that I give as well, is a quote from Martha Graham. And it is, "There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there's only one of you in all of time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and be lost. The worlds will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours, clearly and directly, to keep the channel open." So this is that space for allowing that exploration and creativity to, that's there, and how to tap into it and allow it to flow and happen. And so this is that piece of allowing and cultivating imagination. It improves our mental and emotional well-being as well as our physical. Everything works together. So when we can relax and allow some of this imagination and creativity to emerge and to come into our lives, it enhances all aspects of our life. So utilizing imagination is perfect also for exploring our feelings and our thoughts, and being curious about them. By using us creative processes, we can create a lot of space for daydreaming and letting our minds wander. It can lower our anxiety and elevate our mood, allowing us to help cope with everyday stresses and anxieties. The reality is that creativity isn't a gift. It is available to anyone and everyone. It is like a muscle that needs to just be practiced. And the more we strengthen it, the stronger it becomes, and the easier it comes to us. This is for not just, a painter, a drawer, a singer, a dancer. This is for, chefs, stay-at-home moms, CEOs, whatever label that you're living and you're doing. We're bringing curiosity and being and creativity, because we are being creative, and how to really just practice and hone different aspects of that so that we can strengthen that muscle and get into more of a imagination world. I mean, as a kids, we were trained to, that's part of where we lived. And so how can we allow that freedom of allowing that imagination to become part of our world and our lives again? And remembering that there is no one size fits all here, that this is about you exploring what works for you and what feels good to you, because there's plenty of ways to get there and explore our imagination and our creativity. This is part of listening to yourself and not following just what someone else says to do. It's like you might check out some different avenues and aspects and then see how it feels and switch gears if it's not your jam. Because creativity is just like that muscle. You gotta work it and practice it, and then allow that creativity to just emerge. So first, I want to say that with like exercise, it's very helpful to create space to practice your creativity and creating space for your imagination. However, that's also being very flexible about it too, because you don't need to do it for an hour or a half hour or whatever to make it work or to get the results that you want. Sometimes it's creating that space to go for, to put some attention on it for 5 minutes. Maybe it's 10 minutes, and then those days when I'm going to do this for 30, or it starts feeling really good and you create that more space. And so watch where we want to be rigid around what it takes to do something, so keep that flexibility and also that curiosity and lightness around it so that you want to do it. If it becomes a should, that really can put the kibosh on things. And we're not always in control of when creativity strikes. And so sometimes starting with some just more, I don't want to say just straightforward practices and creating that space where just take the pressure off. So when we have no less pressure, then things tend to flow a little bit easier. This is something that I practice with as well, because it's so easy to start putting the different pressures on ourselves around whatever those thought patterns are. So taking some of the parameters off what you think that space for creativity looks like, so just allowing some play in there. And so I'm going to just run through a few things that I came up with that maybe you're doing some already, which is awesome. And if not, they're just reminders that these are options that are out there that, I could start. That sounds intriguing. I want to bring that back in. Like just doodling in a notebook. Get a little notebook or a little binder. I have several I'm going to show you here in a minute of just having some different pieces of paper around. Heck, I have a scrap paper that I don't want to throw it away because I can write on it and make little notes or whatever. However, paper clip them together and make a little book, and you can just use that for making marks and exploring a little bit, so just being creative about what you've got around you. You don't have to go and invest in a bunch of stuff in order to explore your creativity. So doodling, I do that a lot when I'm on the phone sometimes too. It's just a little nice thing to see what marks come out when you're not got your mind totally put on just that. And the other thing is playing music and dancing. I've had this suggested to me before, and I've done some of it. However, it's like, where's this little resistance of putting on the music and then just dancing? Allow yourself just to dance and move and be free. I think there's a big piece. I believe there's a big piece about allowing that space of inhibition and for being with yourself and allowing yourself to be silly or free or whatever the emotions are that want to come out, and just moving your body however it wants to. And another one would be to laugh out loud. And there are some laughing yoga groups out there that I was researching, which are awesome. They found that laughing, as we all know, is the best medicine, right? Well, it's a great heart and brain activator. So the practice of even when you're feeling blue or down, even or even when you're not, just spontaneously laughing, just that act of doing that can get you into a laughing spell. And that right there releases all sorts of good chemicals in your body that help release that help you lift you up. And that might be a good little practice to do prior to doing any of the other ones, just to get you into more of that kind of space. So bring out that inner child and allow yourself to laugh and play and just go. And another one is just a creativity timer. You can set a 5 to 10 minutes to challenge yourself to create something and go for quantity over quality. And this is where in a little bit, I'm going to do a little exercise and show you how we can do this quantity over quality exercise as well. And this is for that notebook. If you've got that scratch pad that you put together of recycled paper or something. Well, challenge yourself for 5 minutes to see what you can do to fill those all up, and see what happens, and just allow this playing to unfold. And then another one that you could do is to find something at home to draw, and then draw, or maybe not at home, even at the office or wherever you have a daily routine where you are somewhere every day, and then pick out something and then draw that thing every single day. And we're talking about maybe just with a pen and scratch pad. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, or pencil. And if you start wanting to get into some other, bringing in some crayons or markers or colors or whatever, then do that. And that's part of the exploring, is to pick out that thing you're going to draw. And this doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, it doesn't look like that chair, or it doesn't look like that plant. Great. Maybe it looks like something totally fun and different. And we'll see what these lines and these marks that you've made morph into. And they could be so much more interesting than just replicating a picture or an image of a chair, or whatever you've chosen to choose as your subject. And so, how can you change that thing every day? Can we add different colors, different shapes, different lines, different marks? Another piece I'm going to talk to you about is some blind drawing here in a little bit too, and bring in some different aspects with playing with that. So I'll walk you through a little bit of that here in a moment too. So just being able to see what you can come up with new on that topic every day. And then also another one would be this is challenging that how we view things, is to look at things that especially things that we see every day that after a while you really don't see them because you're not really paying attention, or they become invisible, is to look at things in a new way. So how can we slow down and have a look and see something and really look at it and go, oh, I never knew that really had that color in there. Or, how can we look at it from a new perspective? And maybe even it's like, this chair isn't just for sitting on, just how can we think about it as a totally different concept of what the label that we put on it is. So challenge your perspectives. And now here's another big one. Can you allow yourself to be bored? Boredom actually is, it's very rare these days, because a lot of us are so quick to find what those distractions, what can we use to distract ourselves? If you have quiet time, time to pick up that phone, check my email, get on social media, or whatever it is. It's like, wait a minute, where can we allow some more stillness to come in, where we can actually hear our inner voice and different things to come in, and different messages that might be coming to us. And maybe it's that, boy, this is boring. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this. However, the more we practice being in that space, we also give ourselves that room to daydream. That's where, when we start getting out of this rat wheel, we can create space for drop-ins of that imagination and the daydreaming to come in, and the inspiration that wants to bubble up from our hearts and our guts. And so creating that space to be bored, or to be still, and to listen to ourselves and our inner voice, and different daydreams that pop up that we haven't given them space to listen to. And there's a whole new world of magic that maybe will come up that we haven't allowed. So that is a big one. And then another one, which I feel like a lot of us, especially being in Alaska, can really tie into nature and how it can really help us tap into ourselves and our imagination, our creativity, because nature is creation right there, living, growing, dying, decaying, the whole cycle, growing again, so we've got the creation cycle right in front of us, and so much wonderful energy that we can get from being in nature. So change of scenery can create that space of we're giving ourselves that foundation for accessing our creative side. And then so going for walks out in nature, and then there have been being outdoors and being in nature has been shown to increase our creative productivity by 60% simply by being in nature. So that is, right there, that's huge, just to give ourselves that stillness in nature. Great place to really tap into our creativity. And then coming back to music, music is also can be a mood shifter. If you find something that touches you and that resonates with you, and to be able to maybe put on that music and listen. And if you've got your pen or pencil, if you're at your desk and you're taking a break from your computer and your work, or you're creating a space for you to really focus on using some other implementation of charcoals or crayons, other things, however that looks, follow the music. What kind of marks and lines wants to come with listening to that music, and what inspiration do you have? And maybe you feel like just doing it in black and white, or maybe you feel like bringing a color in, and what does that feel like? And all this is with that awareness to come back to that non-judgment space, and that this is just information. So whatever marks are coming from you are from you, and embracing that, owning your process, owning, and not only what marks come from you, but your process of, oh, that's not speaking to me, or I want to something else works a little bit better for me. It's like, that's great. That's information for you to follow and listen to. And one last one I wanted to share is for those who prefer writing, would be to pick out a word out of the dictionary, and then take the word above it and below it, and create a little story around using those words, and let your mind go and have fun with that. So if you're more on the writing side of things, that was what I wanted to throw in there too. I've not done that before. However, that could be very interesting, especially since I felt like writing isn't necessarily my forte. However, experiment, explore, see, right? Check it out, see how I feel. So those are a few ways I wanted to share about how we could just tap into and foster our creativity and bring it in. And some of it you might already be doing. However, if not, maybe something interests you to bring that in. And now I want to, one of those things is, I also want to say that creativity isn't just about paintbrushes and mark making and colors and all the things that we think of, but it's about how we can use our brains and connect our brains and our hearts together and use them together to create our lives. And so practicing and looking at where we can bring in spaces for our imagination to be at play is so important. And that way we can become these creative powerhouses in creating our lives how we want them to, how we would like to have them, what we want to bring more into our lives. What do we want more of in our lives? So what makes you feel good? And listen to that. So with that, I want to actually show you just a few things. And I'm going to switch over my camera now. So give me a sec. And hello. We are going to come over here. And this is where I wanted to show just a couple different, where we can have our our scratch paper where we can clip it all together, and I could cut it down and I can create a nice little notebook. It's just a nice way to recycle paper and then just have something just to practice making marks on. So those are great, just to how to recycle that stack of ream of paper that is going to go into the recycle bin. I have several different size notebooks, sketchbooks, different papers. It doesn't matter. Don't get hung up too much on what it is. Just pick something and go with it. Here's a little one I've just picked up recently. It's a pen, ink, dry, media, light wash. So if I decide with just using pen and pencil, great. But if I wanted to bring in some later on, if I wanted to bring in some water stuff, this paper would handle that as well too. And with that being said, I probably, like, this one's not a great water paper, perhaps. However, it's not going to stop me from playing around with the water if I decide to. So this is some stuff I've done in the past, and I just wanted to bring in just being able to have something large so you to be able to see. And here's just a pen, and here's a pencil. So you don't really need much. This is about what you have on hand that you can use. I think all of us have a pen and paper nearby. So this is about just making some marks. So one of the things I really like is blind drawing. And so I've got, say, this coffee mug over here. So I'm going to just set it down here. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the coffee mug, and I'm going to take my eyes off of the pen and my pencil and paper, and I'm going to look at the mug. And I'm just going to draw what I see. And I can draw it however I want. I'm not getting too hung up on whether the lines are connecting. And then I can just, and it's got all these circles on there. So I'm just going to draw, and you might want to get a little bit closer just to kind of, I know that the pencil isn't showing up real great in there. And I'm just drawing what I see. And then if I stand back now and look at that, okay, yeah, it doesn't look like that mug, but who cares? There's some fun little different marks that are showing up in there. Then maybe I also have my kids' crayons around, or I have this colored pencil set, and then I can come back in and maybe do it again. I'm doing another blind drawing where I'm looking at the mug and not at the paper. And I'm also, you can also say, I'm not lifting, there's different ways of doing this. So you can lift your pencil up or not. And then I've got this quirky little drawing. Okay. So it's about playing and allowing how the marks come out, and without judging what is happening. And so we have got the blind drawing, and with this, you can use that exercise when you choose that item that you wanted to do every day. So maybe it's my coffee mug. I'm going to choose it every day, and I'm going to do it differently. So maybe tomorrow I do it in green, or I do it in a totally different medium. Maybe I decide I have this really cool collection of different charcoals that I've collected over the years. And of course, it's taken me a while to collect them. However, if you find that charcoal is something that you really like, then check out this big chunky guy. Look at the marks that it makes, and then I can go on the side. And so some of what we're doing here too is what kind of marks can we make? One of the things I wanted to bring up too is if you are using your squares of paper, I have, this is that quantity over quality factor too, is, I can cut up my scrap paper, but I have this, maybe come up a little bit higher from above there. I have this stack of papers. And so I could go, okay, I'm going to set my timer now for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however much time you got. And I'm going to go through and I am going to see what different kind of marks that I can make. I'm going to go, okay, I've got fat marks and I've got skinny mark, and I'm going to do some thin pencil marks, and I'm going to mix in some pen with it. And so then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do that again. What can I do? A fat mark, some thin marks, different. If you have different pens and pencils around, and then maybe I'm going to bring in a color, and then I've got different shapes. Okay, so then I'm going to move on. So just keep going. So you're not worrying about one particular piece, if it's any good, or what's going on in there. It's how can we create different marks and squiggly marks. Maybe we've got the thin, the thick. Maybe we bring in our fingers if we feel like it, and we can do some blending like that. Of course, this is where it's good to have paper towels around as well, or baby wipes, so that you can clean things off your fingers, especially if you're at your desk at work, right? If you're brave enough to jump into some of that there. So this is where having a stack of scratch paper, you can just jump in, and quantity over quality. How many marks can you make? There's a whole list of, okay, do I want to make, am I going to go for how many fat lines can I make versus skinny lines? And perhaps just doing it in black and white. And so bringing in a white marker or chalk. Or then, okay, I'm going to do some and bring in some color. So it's about all the different types of marks that you can think of. So you can make a little list beforehand or practice a little bit too. We've got squiggly, we've got different shapes, we've got thin, fat, bold, light, dark. Just putting out just different marks. Maybe I have a goal to set where I'm going to make 10 marks on each piece of paper. So you go through and make 10 marks on each piece of paper in whatever fashion you want. And this is about just allowing the play and the flow of letting it unfold. So those are a couple ideas. Another one I wanted to mention to you is taking, here you can see, I took a black and white photograph. You can take any photograph and then you can convert it to black and white, and then print it out this on your regular copy paper, and then tear it up into however many pieces you want. You can see here, I tore it up into quite a few different pieces. And then I just took another piece of paper, maybe a little bit more substantial, and I glued my black and white photo down in whatever way it spoke to me. And then I glued it all down, and this is my reconstruction of my black and white photograph. It's fun to do that, to play around with what comes out of that, just to see and play around. And you're using your imagination as you go. There is another exercise called, and this kind of goes along with your multiple pieces of paper, is the 30 identical circles. And I found this online and was able to print it out, so I didn't have to draw my circles. However, it would be kind of fun just to draw the circles too. So you could do that. And the same thing, this is the quantity over quality. Fill each circle, set a timer for however long you've got. Maybe it's 5 minutes, or even perhaps just 2 minutes, and make your marks in there. Okay, how am I going to fill these marks or these circles? And we're going to go in and, I'm going to use just triangles in this one. And how does that look? And perhaps, I'm just going to jump down here. Why do I have to follow the line? And so just going in and seeing what comes out. Maybe this is a fun one to do when you're on the phone, having that conversation where you're doing a lot of listening. And then you can see what kind of marks want to come out of there. And allow yourself just to play and experiment and see what kind of marks want to come out. And allow yourself just to go and not overthink. This is a big piece of the quantity over quality, is to not get caught up in our head and overthinking what's coming out, and allowing and letting what comes out to be okay, because it's information. And if you do feel like you're judgmental about it, it's a good spot to go, why am I judgmental about that? We're playing and having fun. So allowing some space just to play and have fun. So those were a couple little exercises that I wanted to run through with you. Now, I also wanted to pull out, because I think this is a fun way if you're ready to jump into working with a little bit of color. There are some really wonderful travel watercolor sets out there. And watercolor is something that people shy away from. However, if at times, that's my impression, it's easy to feel like, because it is a challenging medium. However, it is also, I like to clean things up, that's like a little bit. A fun way just to play with the medium. Check out all these different colors that are in here. This is a travel watercolor set. And here's the other cool thing, is this is a travel watercolor brush. And I filled this yesterday with the water. The water lives inside here. I don't know if you can see that. So I can squeeze here and it wets my brush. And I can, at this point, allow myself just to play with some color. And oh, you know what feels good? And how easy it is just to not have to dig out and tubes and have a palette or have all the brushes. So having something easy and quick around to play with, and then this is also another place you want to have your paper towels so that you can change your colors, because I like bright now and then as well. And being able to just play and see what wants to come out without thinking. I could get caught up in this. You can see how the water affects everything. And then at this point too, maybe I want to bring in some pencil on top of that, or my pen. This is what happens if, right? Experimenting and playing, and then I can even bring in some of that charcoal. And then I use my finger a little bit and spread that around. So get a little water on there. So playing and seeing what you can come up with, and just allowing that space. So I thought that was kind of a fun thing to show you that it doesn't have to be a big deal to pull out things that create color. And even some of these watercolor pencils, that pencil that I used up here, I'll show you real quick over here, that I can take. This pencil I used over here is a watercolor pencil. So this watercolor brush that I already have can wet that up. And then you can play with your color that way. If you feel like you want to get into color, because sometimes it's fun just to stick with the black and white and the charcoal and the pencils and what you've got. So it can be easy. It doesn't need to be a big, challenging thing that keeps us from doing it. And you might, go, I don't have any idea if I like painting or if I like drawing or if I like making marks. And yet, unless you experiment and check it out and see, you might find that you really love it. And it might be something that really lights you on fire. So give yourself a chance to find out. So those were a few things, bringing in, finger painting, with enough water in here, I could play around with that too. But maybe go get a set of finger paints, like from the kids store. There's something so satisfying about getting your fingers into the mix. So yeah, let's see. At this point, I think showing you just a basic, wanting you to just encourage you to just get started, playing around. And remember, this isn't just about the mark making. If the music is something that hits you better more, and moving your body, playing around with that way, just being in nature and walking. So it doesn't have to be about painting and mark making. However, giving yourself some time to play around with creating, what kind of marks would I put into some circles or squares? You know, maybe the squares are more your jam. So doing that, or the multiple papers and just making marks and seeing what happens, you know, and bringing in different mediums in there. If at some point, if you're wanting to play around with that, see what happens and see how you feel. So while we're here, I wanted to also show you really quick that I have my palette turned on for my the encaustic that I play with. And I do wear gloves with this. Not that I don't think I'm going to get that entailed today, but I wanted just to show you quickly what it's about. As a brief little intro, I've got an electric griddle down here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like an electric griddle you have in your, like an old dorm room or something, right? Where you can make your SpaghettiOs. So it's heating up this palette. So this is hot, and I can put my hand on there, but I don't necessarily want to leave it there. You can see some of the paint that I had on my gloves is coming off the palette. And these are some colors that I had melted on here yesterday. See, I'm playing with blocks of paint instead of tubes of paint. And you can see here how I can melt that here. Also, I can melt them into tins so that I've got colors melted already into the tin, and then I can start color mixing. And so it's been a very fun medium to be able to do that. And then there is a medium that is this is beeswax with a little bit of resin in it. These are beeswax, also with a tinge of resin, so that it creates a little hardness. However, it melts when it's heated up. And then at this point, I can use it to paint onto wood panels, or I can use it to also inlay, do some paper, use special papers and lay it on there, and do some monotyping, or I'll show you really quick. Some little ones that I played with a while back of melting on the palette and then picking it up. So creating little designs on the palette. Like here's for an example. This is fun. That's how, you know, instead of like maybe getting up my drawing, I come and melt wax and pick it up on paper and see what happens. So there's some fun little things that can happen just in doing that. So exploring, what if I do this? What if I do that? So those are some fun little things that I like to play around with. And that's just a little flavor, a little taste of what encaustic painting, what I get to play with, I'm blessed to play with, and just share a little touch of that. And I'll be sharing more of that along the way as well in some other videos. So I'm going to switch back to my other screen and have some closing remarks now. And I wanted to thank my lovely, supportive husband, who's been a wonderful cameraman for me today. So thank you. So thank you for joining me on just breaking into allowing ourselves to be more creative. And what areas in our life can we do that? And remembering that we can do this from our desk in the office, creating little 5-minute Zen circle drawings, mark making, to in the kitchen, to checking out different spices, and you know, where do you bring your creativity in, and what does that look like for you, and what feels good to you, and what are you willing to explore? Maybe I want to check out some watercoloring, you know, maybe I want to check out pencil drawing and see what that does. And so giving yourself that space to trust yourself and play and explore, and listening to you, what feels good. So those were a few things that I wanted to bring up. And once more, just the biggest piece is to watch where the self-judgment wants to come in. And that's something that, is constantly in our negativity bias in our head. It tends to, it's easy to go there. However, we do have control over watching that and allowing ourselves that space to play and choosing more uplifting words and languages, and being kind and gentle with ourselves and compassionate. And that is what will help give space for our creativity to arise, is when we are more moving from our hearts and being kind and gentle with ourselves and those around us. So be willing to practice and play with your creativity muscle and see where it goes. And enjoy playing and exploring and listening to what inspires you. And as with all exercise, sometimes we need to give ourselves that little pep talk that says, I just don't really feel like doing that today, but there's a part of you that knows that it really would be beneficial and you're going to feel better afterwards. So do it, take that 5 minutes or that 10 minutes and create some space for drawing or for some stillness and for yourself to be bored and to daydream and to enjoy this process of life. So, yes, I just wanted to also share that next week I was due to be on live on Tuesday as well. However, Summer of Purpose is happening and I am getting the opportunity to be out in nature in Cooper Landing, Alaska, to go float Kenai River and do a little fly fishing. So I'm going to be spending some time down there, and I am going to go live on Monday instead of Tuesday with a little check-in from Cooper Landing, as if Wi-Fi permits. So that's the goal. And so I would love for you to check in with me and feel free to, and I'd love to hear how your creativity process is going. And also if you've had a chance to listen to any of the other videos with Lee Lubin on physical wellness and Leah Campbell-Badisher on emotional well-being, and with Jen Merrill on spiritual wellness, and now with our creativity, rounding all that out. So give me some of your feedback. I'd love to hear how your summer is unfolding and what's happening inside of you and how it's feeling. So thank you very much for being with me here today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will look forward to checking in with you next week. Thanks.